Hello and welcome back to Alice Talks Football and welcome back to a live Premier League news, Manchester United news, Manchester United transfer news and Manchester United Takeover live stream. We will be talking about the latest on Sheikh Jassim's bid, the Takeover and Min Jae in just a second. But this Ivan Toney story has broke, and you know me in my live streams, we do talk about general football news as well, but mostly focused on United. And I have to say, I think this Ivan Toney, he's been punished way too harshly. Maybe that's just me, but as far as I'm aware, he betted on Premier League games, but he didn't bet on any Premier League games that he was playing with, who he was playing in. So, if he's betting on something that he can have an impact on, I get that is bad. But if he's just betting on other Premier League games, I don't see why that's worth an 8-month ban. We see players getting little to no bans for racism. Then Ivan Toney bets on some games that don't involve me. And not only has he got an 8-month ban, I'm talking 8-month ban from all footballing activities. This means he cannot sign any contracts, he cannot sign a new deal, he cannot go to training. Ivan Toney has not just been banned from playing matches for 8 months, but he has been banned from going to training, doing stuff with Brentford, like even going on their pre-season tour, anything football related. He cannot join a club, he cannot sign a new deal, he cannot go to training. He cannot do anything for 8 months. So that is till 2024, effectively, because, we're in May. That is till February of next season. And he's just come off the back of the best season in his career. He was probably going to get a new move, and obviously we would have liked him at United, and we know that's not possible. And now he's going to have an 8-month ban from everything. Now, he did deserve some punishment. He did deserve some kind of ban because the rules were in place. 3 months, I get that. But 8 months, I think, is unbelievably long, especially when it's an 8-month ban for everything, especially when reportedly he wasn't even betting on games that he was in. If he was betting the games he was in, maybe I'd understand. But always some players get less for literal racism. Like, what did Luis Suarez get? Manchester City have been cheating for years. Manchester City have been doing FFP cheating for absolute years, and then they'll go and pay lawyers and get the most expensive lawyers in the world and throw even more hundreds of millions at it, and they'll swoop Man City under the rug. But because Brentford don't have the power and kind of money that Manchester City do, Ivan Toney's bish bash bosh stepped on with a ban, and I think that I just think it's ridiculously harsh. I don't know what your opinion is on it, but I think it's harsh. I mean, look, Leiter makes a point here. Why does a footballer need to gamble? I think if you're a footballer and you've been told not to gamble, why do you need to gamble? Especially like betting. Like, if you want to gamble, go to a casino. Nothing to do with football. If you're a footballer, you make crazy money. Why do you need to gamble? I get this. But I just think it's such a harsh ban as well. If the Glazers are wanting $6 billion, why doesn't Qatar just bid that? At least if they're serious in selling, then they should just settle it, because Qatar know that's a massive overvaluation, and I think they're playing the Glazers bluff. If they go in and give the Glazers $6 billion and fold, that could make Qatar look less strong and more vulnerable as well. And I think that is why. And we will get into takeover news as well. But we're going to talk about the United sale in a minute. There are betting rules, and he breached them many, many times. Professional footballers should know better. And that is true. He did breach the rules. He shouldn't have done it. But I do think it was a bit of a harsh punishment. Now, I want to get into the takeover news. And actually, a story had just broke before I went live. I was going to report another story, but a story just broke. And I can't be bothered to get it up, because I think because you have to pay for the Athletic, I think if I shared my screen with the whole Athletic story, and I think I could get in trouble. Not sure, but what I'll do is I'll get the main quotes from the Athletic, and I would recommend reading Athletic if you want to. But it was said, and it was an interesting report. It was said, behind the scenes, friction led to Sheikh Jassim's team to go directly to the Glazers themselves. The new bid could possibly have been a result of that. Now, we obviously know for the last few weeks there's been talks of the Rain Group not having really any contact with Qatar not sure what's going on, and then they hear all this news that Sir Jim is in pole position. So I believe there is truth that the Rain Group and Qatar's relationship have broken down, and we did hear talks that Sheikh Jassim and Qatar are willing to go direct with the Glazers to get this done, the Rain Group, and then blah, blah, blah. We see Abraham Glazer in London staying at the Qatar hotels. The next day, bish, bash, bosh, Qatar put their bid in. We know the 90 representatives are in London, and they've been told not to come back until that the takeover is done. And it is true that the Glazers and Qatar have had direct talks working on this takeover as well. It was said, with neither Sir Jim nor Sheikh Jassim hearing any response to their bids made on the 28th of April, the latter teams were fearing they could miss out on making one final bid. So, they didn't hear about anything, and they were worried that they weren't going to be able to put this final bid in but they can put this final bid in. And it's even been reported by some sources, which I'm going to get into, and then I'm going to get into an article in just a second after I read out this article that's just broke, because this article's just broke, saying that basically Qatar won't give up. Other articles saying Qatar are going to go, as long as they can bid and bid and bid again, they'll go higher and higher and higher. They're saying if this isn't accepted, they'll bid again and go higher. As long, they'll keep bidding, and they won't give up. It's another story that's being reported that we'll get into. Remember, the Athletic, I think, is becoming a little bit of PR for Sir Jim Ratcliffe at the moment. And I think, I will say this with every takeover story when we read Manchester United takeover stories, when we get into Manchester United takeover news, I think we always have to take everything with a little pinch of salt. Just because even if it's come from Laurie Whitwell, who was one of the best journalists out there when it comes to United, very credible. Laurie Whitwell is briefed by the club, and the Athletic will have very good connections to the club, very good connections to the Glazers. The stories can almost have that slight twist of Sir Jim Ratcliffe favouritism or Sir Jim Ratcliffe PR. So I think you have to take some information with a little pinch of salt. But it was said some at the Reign are surprised they haven't spoken to the man behind the Qatar-based bid, Sheikh Jassim. His representatives say he's keen. He keeps himself to himself, and he isn't one for the public eye. So what's being said, because we really know nothing about Sheikh Jassim, is that obviously everything that's been done has been done with Qatar's representatives, not Sheikh Jassim. He's the money man. He's got people doing the job for him, etc., etc. Now, the article actually in more depth, because I read the article, goes on to say something along the lines of actually, because of Sir Jim Ratcliffe being like more in the public eye, it's almost preferred in that sense. But I mean, for me, the fact that Sheikh Jassim doesn't want public eye doesn't put me off in the slightest. I think at least he's not attention seeking. Sometimes I think when people like that Silicus guy, when he was saying he was going to buy United, I thought it was pure attention seeking PR. I think he's not particularly interested in that. We will get into the Min Jae news in just a second, but AJ says our summer is screwed, and I think the fact that this is taking so long, it is worrying me about our summer. And Alex said, if the bid is less per share, I still find that a risky strategy. At this point, I should be bidding more overall per share. And I agree. I still think it is just Sir Jim could be leading the takeover race. Despite recent reports of them upping their bid to like 5.6 billion, I still think that Sir Jim could be leading the race, because we know that the Glazer siblings want to sell, but Joe and Avram are reluctant to sell. If Sir Jim buys 50% for 3 billion, that buys out the Glazer siblings, and that would give the Glazer siblings more money than if Sheikh Jassim bought the whole club for 5.5 billion, and it would allow Joe and Avram to share, which is why I still think that Sir Jim Ratcliffe could potentially be the favourite here. However, when you buy 100% of something, you naturally pay less. I always say when you buy a 6-pack of crisps, if I've gone to the shop and I want 6 hula hoops, in a multi-pack in one bag with 6 in, that's going to cost me £2. If I want to buy a packet of hula hoops, it's going to cost me 60p. To buy 6 would be £3.60. To buy it all in one big pack would be £2. Whenever you buy a bundle of something, it's cheaper than buying it individually. So some people say, but look, Sheikh Jassim is going to bid for 100% of United, and he's going to give the money straight up front. And because he's bidding for 100%, it's going to be less per share, but he's going to give the money all in one hitting, straight up front, blah de blah. But other people are saying, but at the end of the day, Sir Jim is bidding less than Sheikh Jassim overall, but he's bidding for 50%, so he's bidding more per share. But also, Sir Jim, the Glazer siblings want to sell, Joe and Avram want to stay. This gives Joe and Avram a chance to stay, and the Glazer siblings a chance to sell and buy their way out. Anyway, guys, what is the quality like of the live stream? What is the quality like of the live stream? Because I've been told my Wi-Fi has been really bad today. I've been having lots of Wi-Fi issues. So if there is any issues, I do apologise. Sheikh Jassim's team went directly to the Glazers to launch a 4th improved bid, rain bypass tensions between other buyers. Exactly. And we will get into that. So getting into the next bit of the story as well. It sort of talks about, how, Qatar don't seem to have the best relationship with Reign, but it said invested observers speculate such dragging of the sale process point to internal disagreements among Glazer family, with Joe and Avram also changing minds. Now, this is an interesting thing, and I thought this was actually one of the most interesting things in this Laurie Whitwell article, because why has this deal been dragging on? 3 weeks ago, we were told that they preferred Sir Jim Ratcliffe so much, and that Sir Jim Ratcliffe was going to be the preferred bidder in pole position, etc., etc. But they never went into an exclusive zone with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And that makes me think they were waiting for Qatar. They did that on purpose. They were waiting to see if they could get more from Qatar. But the fact that it's dragging on is because the Glazer siblings want to sell, and they're saying there's disagreements between Joe and Avram and the Glazer siblings. Now, we know the Glazer siblings just want to sell. Joe and Avram might not want to sell, and that is the problem, because Joe and Avram have the final say. They have the most power, and if Joe and Avram don't want to sell, they're not going to go with Qatar, because Qatar are going to buy 100% of the club. It continued up by saying some feel that giving Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos the impression that they're close to being successful bidders could be the final method to get more money out of Sheikh Jassim's bid. And this was the most interesting thing by Laurie Whitwell, because I do think the Athletic do have a slight stance towards Sir Jim in their reports, but to say something like this, I think is very factual. In the sense of, I think, we know the Glazers are all about money. We don't know a lot about the takeover. We don't know what's true. We don't know what's not true. I think everything that's reported, you have to take with a pinch of salt. But what we know about the takeover is that, and what we know about the Glazers, is that the Glazers want as much money as possible. And I wouldn't be shocked if, it was a big game. There's non-disclosure agreement signed. So everything that comes out on the takeover is leaked from United. All that information that the journalists who were briefed by United, and this all came from journalists who were briefed by United, all the journalists who were briefed by United have come out over the last 3 weeks with these stories that Sir Jim is in pole position, that Sir Jim's their preferred bidder, that Sir Jim's bid is so much higher, and that Qatar's bid is underwhelming. And then Qatari sources are telling people our bid's high, like we're confident. We don't know where our bid isn't good enough stories are coming out. We don't know where this Sir Jim's in pole position story is coming out. And, all the journalists who were saying that Sir Jim's in pole position are Man United brief journalists. They're good journalists. They state factual information, but they also used in negotiation tactics, Glazer games, because, they will deliberately put out things. With non-disclosure agreements being signed, everything that really gets reported, that the Glazers or someone close to the takeover wants that reported. And we know Manchester United have done this multiple times. The Glazers have done this multiple times. They use the media for PR. They use the media to try and get, to try and swing a deal along. When Manchester United were on the verge of signing Jadon Sancho, they released a load of stories to reliable journalists that were going for Ousmane Dembele. It's a tactic to try and get Dortmund to lower the price of Sancho. It doesn't work because Dortmund can see right through us because they know that we're idiots and they've got no strategy in the transfer window. But it's very common of United to do things and release almost false information in a game. I still think that Sir Jim could be at a better place than Sheikh Jassim just because he's bidding more money per share, and the Glazer siblings want to sell, and Joe and Avram potentially want to stay. But I do think the fact that Sir Jim Ratcliffe was meant to be the preferred bidder 3 weeks ago, the Glazers' favourite option 3 weeks ago, but they still waited 3 weeks. Why wouldn't they go on an exclusive zone with Sir Jim Ratcliffe if they liked his bid that much? Was it a big game to get more money out of Sheikh Jassim? Is it all been just a game? Has it been going on so long because the Glazers want more money out of Sheikh Jassim? But obviously with Credit Suisse going down, they realised Qatar don't have as much money as they originally had, etc., etc. Is it a game, etc., etc., etc. But Jim needs to pee off, and that is a problem. More per share, Glazer siblings get more money, and if Joe and Avram want to stay, it helps Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bid. And this is the big problem. Hopefully we're not lagging as much anymore. We've just been really lagging today. This is the big problem. At the end of the day, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's is more per share. And that might be what the Glazers see. However, as Nick has said, Qatar's money is up front and Jim has to take a loan out to pay, and this will be in stages. It also depends on, how they want that done. I'll see if they've put anything else out on the story, because I don't want to get the whole story up on my screen because you've obviously got to pay to access the Athletic. But obviously just saying very much that this could be a big tactic. Now, I actually want to get into the story that I was going to report on earlier as well. Obviously, there was the Ivan Toney story that we were talking about, but there was another story that came out today basically saying, there was obviously Mark Ogden's story that came out 2 days ago saying that Qatar will not return to its done, etc., etc. But I want to get into another report by The Athletic today, and then I want to get into the real story that's interesting, and then I want to get into the Min Jae news, and then I even want to get into the Manchester United midfielder news after this, because United obviously going to smash the cash on the midfielder. And I tell you what, we've got so much news to talk about in today's live stream, and I will do my best to get through the live chat, but I want to get through the news as quickly as possible, and then we'll do live chit chats on it in a second. But it was said by The Athletic, several sources now reporting confidence from Ratcliffe's team that his Ineos bid will be successful. Bankers associated with parts acquisitions by Ineos were very recently instructed to pull together Pacific financing for Manchester United, indicating advanced talks. So despite Sheikh Jassim putting in their bid, people in Ratcliffe's team go, no, we're too advanced, we're too far in this, we're still confident. So Ratcliffe's team very, very confident and could be much further in than Qatar. It was said, some at Rain are surprised that there has been no direct contact with Sheikh Jassim even now. That level of privacy means the Premier League would take longer ratifying their takeover, making the deal less appealing to the Glazer siblings who want to cash out immediately. Which, for me, makes no sense, this, because if you want to cash out immediately, Sheikh Jassim will give you all your money at once. You have to wait for instalments with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. So, you know, for me, I don't think that makes sense. And I do think The Athletic I like The Athletic. I think they're fantastic. And they've got some really good journalists and they do put out some really good stuff. But they've got really good sources. And I think sometimes it does give off slight surge in PR or slight surge in bias in reports. However, I'm not saying that they are. I think they are pretty factual. But, you know, it was also said here, what happens after Qatar's latest bid remains to be seen. But the sense things had to be up to that point heading in Ratcliffe's direction comes from financiers who have spoken recently with Rain counterparts and is strengthened by the mystique around Sheikh Jassim. So they're saying the reason they think that the deal is heading in Ratcliffe's direction is because those talking to Rain. So, and this is a big part of this story, and I'm going to get into why I think this story is big as well. English coverage is biased. Read Al Jazeera's as well. I'm going to get into the reports from foreign media as well. I'm going to get into reports by foreign media as well in just a second. But do smash that like button, subscribe down below. But I want to say why I think this is interesting. So I think what they're saying is the people who've spoken to Rain are saying this is heading in Ratcliffe's direction. The Rain group believe this is heading in Ratcliffe's direction. Now, the Rain group would not put any information out without the Glazers allowing them to. And potentially the Glazers, and this links back to the report the Athletic done recently, potentially the Glazers wanted the Rain group to put this out to get Qatar to bid higher and get Qatar to come in with a higher bid. Or potentially it's the truth. You know, there's so many quick ways we can look at that as well. Continuing on with the story, there's even more in the story, and then I'm going to get into the news that hasn't come out from English media in a second because, you know, we will get into other stuff. But it was also said here, some feel giving Ratcliffe the impression of success could be a final method to squeeze the Qataris. Those involved in Sheikh Jassim's bid say they aren't giving up. According to sources, whether their last bid is final depends on what feedback they receive. But this is the highlight of the story. This is the thing that, you know, is what I wanted to talk about essentially. According to sources, whether their last bid is final one depends on what feedback they receive. We've been hearing reports that Sheikh Jassim has told his representatives not to come back to Qatar till it's done. Every time they get feedback, they will so determined to get this done. They will go higher. They will go higher. They will go higher. They are. What is being implied is that Qatar are very determined to get united. They've made this 19 foundation. They are so deep in this takeover that if this bid isn't enough, they would try and go back and put in another bid, which is long, which is annoying because it will delay the takeover even more, and it's going to mean the transfer window. It just feels like it's never going to happen. And the fact that the club announced its sale in November and we're still getting towards the end of May and nothing has been wrapped up is a disgrace because we know Tenori's transfer plans, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But it is saying whether their last bid is final one depends on what feedback they receive. There is indication that if they said no, Qatar will go in for another bid, that Qatar will not stop at any cost. That is the indication coming out as well. Qatar has no debt and ground and training grounds. What I like about the Qatar bid is they'll make things happen instantly. They take over United, boom, let's do this to the stadium, boom, let's do this to the training ground, boom, let's invest in this. Sir Jim Ratcliffe cannot do the investments that Qatar can do and cannot do it immediately. He doesn't have the financial capabilities of Qatar. You know, so that is the troubling thing as well. But another bid could come in from Sheikh Jassim, another bid could come in from Qatar if that is not deemed enough, which I think is really, really interesting. I just can't wait for next season. Me too. Honestly, I'm so fed up with this takeover. It's been dragging on. Money up front plus 5% interest is more than Sir Jim Ratcliffe is offering. Potentially. And the Glazers were chaos now and only care about transfers if they're selling the club. Why would they? Sorry, I've misread. I've read the one above you. Sorry. Why would the Glazers care about transfers if they're selling the club? Exactly. They don't care about transfers. That's what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to imply is the Glazers will happily drag on this deal even longer and longer and longer. You know, this started in November. This was meant to be wrapped up by April. They're going to drag it into June, and because they know that the transfer window is not going to affect them because they might potentially not be here, so they're going to drag the deal out as long as they can. And even if they are still here with their 20% ownership under Sir Jim Ratcliffe, that takes the heat off them. It doesn't matter to them how United perform. So the Glazers will go, well, you know what? At the end of the day, we're looking to sell the club. If it means Tenol's transfer window is screwed and we get a few million more, we'll get a few million more. It's just the way they think. Al Jazeera reported yesterday it's not a final bid. I mean, yeah, there's sources close to Qatari saying that they would put in another bid if need be. And Qataris have to realise investment into the club and community and clearing the debt does not sway the Glazers at all. And the problem with the Qatari bid is they've done a pledged investment on top. If you're bidding for Chelsea, brilliant. That's what they want. But if you're bidding for United, they're not interested in pledged investment, etc., etc., etc. We'll get into what Arabian Business is saying. We'll get into what Ben Jacobs is saying. We'll get into what some of the Qatari sources are saying now, and then we'll go back to that, and we'll go back to the Kim and Jae story in just a second. But, you know, I have to say, I think you have to take every story with a slight pinch of salt, because we've got one source saying the bid is 4.8 billion, one source saying the bid's 5.2 billion, one source saying the bid's 5.5 billion, and one source saying the bid's 5.6 billion. They're saying the bid is $6.9 billion, which is 5.5 billion pounds. And it was said by Arabian Business that Qatar Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani has made an improved offer of $6.9 billion to buy United. And remember, the $7 billion has that Qatar were going to make has been reported for a while, which would equate to £5.5 billion. Now, this story, and the interesting thing about this story, it was corroborated with a few other sources. However, we just don't know who to believe. So I'm not saying that it's true, but I'm saying that it's one to keep an eye on. It was said here, although the 9-2 Foundation's latest offer has not been disclosed, my understanding is that it is over 7 billion, 5.6 billion all in, inclusive of the pledged investment. Bids are placed in dollars in this process, says Ben Jacobs. So again, we've got another source suggesting this could be around the $5.6 billion mark. And this was the interesting thing. This was the next bit of Ben Jacobs' story, which I'll get up for you here. It was then said, the pledged investment from Sheikh Jassim is understood to be 1 billion, 0.8 billion pounds. Qatar side are adamant, again, as they were April 28th, it's on top, not inclusive. And this is the problem, because we don't know for sure if this pledged investment is on top of the 5.5 billion or included in the 5.5 billion, because Qatari sources are saying it's on top of the 5.5 billion. British sources are often saying it's including the 5.5 billion. If you move £8 billion from 5.6 billion, which is the reported bid, that takes it to 4.8. So you've got British sources saying it's a 4.8 billion pound bid with 800 million pledged investment on top of it. But the sources that are close to Qatar and other sources are saying no, this 800 million is on top of the 5.5 billion, which would take it to technically 6.3 billion, but the Glazers will only look at the 5.5, 5.6 billion. If this is true, if what Ben Jacobs is saying is true and the bid is 5.5 billion, I think Qatar could have it accepted. If it's 4.8 billion and this extra 800 million is in pledged investment, it's going to be Sergio Ratcliffe all the way. It's interesting to know what is true. Now, the British media, they do prefer some Sergio Ratcliffe, and they can potentially sway stories to make Sergio Ratcliffe look in a better position. And there is a bit of Sergio Ratcliffe PR going on. But I also think Qatar are using PR in this takeover. When Qatar are releasing stories, they're talking about everything they're going to do to get the fans all excited. We're going to do this the same, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Qatar could be saying that their bid is massive as part of PR. Now, you know, people do lie. You know, I'm not saying that they are. I'm not saying that Sir Jim's lying. I'm not saying that Qatar's lying, but I'm saying things can be done for PR. Things can be put out for a reason. We just don't know the bid. There's so many different sources saying so many different things, but multiple sources are saying it's 5.5 to 5.6 billion, not including the pledged investment. Most sources are actually saying that this bid is 500 million higher. It is 5.5 billion, and then another 0.8 billion on top of that in pledged investment. And that has been said by Jamie Jackson, Ben Jacobs, Arabian Business, and sources in the Middle East. However, you've got the Times and the Athletic who say elsewhere, and the Times and the Athletic are more reliable sources, but they also have potentially more agendas towards Sergio Ratcliffe, which is, I think, is other things that you have to take account with this takeover as well. And it's not funny. It's not being funny. It's hypocritical. The Rain Group is saying they are shocked and they haven't spoken to Sheikh Jassim when one of the co-owners doesn't even talk to the fans. True, absolutely spot on there as well. Sky Sports have reported the investment is on top of the bid they have placed. So we've got another source saying it's 5.5 billion or around that with the pledged investment on top of it. If the pledged investment is on top of the bid, I believe that Qatar are in a strong position. If it is true that this pledged investment is on top of the bid, I really believe that Qatar are in a strong position as well. British journalists did PR for Poch United when we wanted to know. True. True, there was a point where it looked like Poch was going to be the owner until Ten Hag was done, and it was the British media kind of pushing for Poch. You could say that as well. Diego says over 905 watching, so if you're new, please do subscribe. I'd really appreciate if you did subscribe to the channel. We're on the road. We want to hit 75k by the end of the year, but obviously we're on 61k now, but we're on 61,763 subscribers. So 237 subscribers away from 62k. So please do subscribe if you're new to the channel. I go live every single evening updating you on the news. Thank you very much for the super chat, Nabil. English media is just plain stupid, so I won't believe them at all. They put Grealish over Giggs and already comparing the 1999 side to Manchester City. You're spot on. You're spot on. I tell you what, Jamie Carragher putting Grealish over Giggs is criminal. That is like me making a combined 11 now, looking at Thierry Henry, yeah, and going, nah, I fancy Sancho. Really, I fancy Sancho left wing over Thierry Henry. Look at the goals and assists Sancho got at Dortmund. You know, I'm sorry. Well, maybe Grealish, maybe Thierry Henry's a bit better than Giggs and Grealish is a bit better than Sancho. But let's be honest, you know, ridiculous. I mean, the fact that Scholes didn't make the lineup is criminal. I didn't watch Dwight York, but you look at his statistics, how important he was in that treble winning side. Surely, I know Haaland's unbelievable, but surely there's a way Dwight York gets in there. But no Scholes and no Giggs is absolutely criminal. Absolutely criminal, wasn't it? Alice, can I please know what signings you think United should sign in the summer? Should sign or will sign? I'm going to do a video actually about how United, and I'll probably do that Friday, how United plan to spend their 120 million budget according to reports. I think United should go all out for Moises Caicedo. I know we need a striker, but I would just generally make Moises Caicedo our #1 priority. I think he's unbelievable. I think he can improve control. He can create more chances. He can back up to Casemiro, but Moises Caicedo alongside Casemiro is nasty. I think if he goes to Arsenal or another rival, that's going to be worrying. I don't want that to happen. He's young. He's got like a good 10 years in him. He can play next to Casemiro, behind, you know, as backup to Casemiro, but he can also play right back and fill in there. He can help with controlling the game. He's such an advanced technical player. I will break the bank for Moises Caicedo because De Jong and Bellingham is completely unrealistic. I will get Min Jae 40 million release clause, and I would go and invest in a striker. Victor Osimhen, I think it's going to be too expensive. I do think Kane will only be about 30 million cheaper than Osimhen, but I think Kane could be Robin Van Persie-esque, and I think Gonzalo Ramos could be the best value for money. I'd probably get Kane, Kim Min Jae, Moises Caicedo, and I would potentially look at a goalkeeper as well. It's probably what I do, like David Raya or someone. I'd also look at Lavia of Southampton because they've been relegated, who reportedly Liverpool are inquiring about. And that's annoying because Liverpool will probably get Lavia and McAllister to fix their midfield, and that will probably be done mid-June when United haven't signed anything, because we'll be sitting here in mid-June talking about the takeover, saying, well, United haven't done this, United haven't done that, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, continue on. We'll continue on. There's so much news to get into. I haven't even gone into the Kim Min Jae news. I've been here half an hour, literally going through all the takeover news because ridiculous amounts have come out. So I want to continue on as well. It was said by TalkSport that Man United bid is 5.5 billion. It was said by other sources that actually it's 4.8 billion and the pledge and 800 million pledged investment. Now Simon Stone is an interesting one, because the thing about Simon Stone is he's a very good journalist, but he'll put a story out like tactful, I think. Can't explain it. I mean, Simon Stone is a fantastic journalist, but sometimes when Simon Stone puts out a negative story, United end up signing the player. We call it the Simon Stone jinx. It happened with Bruno. It happened with Sancho, because the Glazers will use Simon Stone to say Manchester United will not sign Bruno Fernandes this January. They cannot afford him. But he won't say that. Simon Stone would say, due to Sporting's unrealistic asking price, United are looking at alternatives to Bruno Fernandes in January. Then a week later, United signed Bruno Fernandes, etc., etc. Simon Stone has been used, I think, as part of Glazer games. Now, it's been said by Simon Stone that Sheikh Jassim wants 100% control and his fourth bid is nearer to 5 billion. Now, he's saying nearer to 5 billion. Simon Stone, again, is implying it's 4.8 billion and the other 800 million is pledged investment. It's like, whereas a load of sources saying, no, it's 5.5 billion and the pledged investment's on top of this. This is the problem. I think if the pledged investment is on top of a 5.5 billion bid, I think Qatar can win this. I think Qatar can beat out Sir Jim. But if the 800 million pledged investment is included in the bid, then it's under 5 billion. And the Glazers agreed that they're not accepting anything under 5 billion. But he said it is thought that Ineos bid still values United higher, but evidently they would not be buying at all. The view has always been the Glazer family would not settle for less than 5 billion. So he's saying, Sir Jim's bid is still higher. It's still valued higher, but if Qatar want to win, they have to put in 5 billion because they are bidding for more, but they'd have to give 5 billion. It's kind of what Simon Stone is implying. And then the interesting thing, and I think, and this you could say is worrying, but I'm not worried, is that Sheikh Jassim's camp is wondering if the Glazers even want to sell Manchester United. They're wondering if they've been played reportedly. Now, this is interesting because surely they wouldn't have had all these meetings, had spoken to the Glazers for months on end, set up this 9-2 foundation, had 10, 15-hour meetings with the Glazers to find out they don't want to sell. They wouldn't. So I don't think this is true. However, the Glazers could have changed their mind because of Sir Jim Ratcliffe's new offer completely changed it. So, he's only buying 50% now. Potentially the Glazers have gone, actually, the Sir Jim Ratcliffe offer is not what we had in mind at first, but we like this. Now we don't want to sell. But I think that's an interesting bit to keep in mind as well. And reporters are not telling the truth. I mean, even if they're reporting on Qatar, even if they're reporting on Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the problem is we don't know what's truthful and we don't know what's not truthful. That is the big problem because everything is non-disclosure agreement, negotiation tactic, people being briefed. At the end of the day, no one really knows what's going on. Only certain information is being put out, and that is being put out for a reason. And we don't know if it's truthful, we don't know if it's tactful, but the fact that every single journalist is giving a different price, is saying, no, this is the pledged investment is included in this bid. No, the pledged investment isn't included in this bid. I think it's so difficult to really understand what's going on. Now, one thing that we know is going on is that United are interested in Min Jae. Now, I'm going to get into, we've had multiple reports linking United to Min Jae, and I'm going to get into this story. It was said today that Manchester United have informed Napoli they're willing to pay Min Jae's €56 million release clause in a 15-day period at the start of July. So that's £40 million. Reports in Italy and decent sources throughout Italy are saying Manchester United have told Napoli they will pay Min Jae's release clause. It's being confirmed that United will be willing to pay Min Jae's release clause when that is needed. That is the information coming out of Min Jae. We've now got another source, and this will be the third or fourth source, corroborating the fact that Min Jae wants to join United, and Min Jae is decided to join United reportedly, because it's been said that Min Jae has now said yes to the prospect of joining Man United this summer, with Manchester United offering a wage of €9 million per season, and that ties in with other reports that United are giving Min Jae a fantastic deal when Min Jae wants to go to United. This is the news on Min Jae. Now, continuing on with the Min Jae news, we have to remember that Romano has said that you have to take this news with a pinch of salt. As far as he's aware, nothing has actually happened. And this is what Romano said. Fabrizio Romano said this on Min Jae's Ultra. It's not true that the deal was closed with Manchester United. There's no hurry for the future. United have been interested in Kim since he was in China. We only spoke, but I repeat, there's no concrete contact. And that's what Fabrizio Romano is saying. And you know what? I believe this because I think that United have had talks with Min Jae, and they've had positive talks with Min Jae. Romano said United are interested in Min Jae, and United have had talks with Min Jae. And United have presented their project to Min Jae. And I'm sure that United are preparing themselves to pay Min Jae's release clause in January. And I'm sure that Min Jae really liked the talks with United and likes the idea of United. But United haven't qualified for the Champions League yet. If we bought the Champions League and Liverpool get it, Min Jae might go, actually, you know what? I don't want to go to United in the summer. I don't think Min Jae will accept anything with United until the summer starts. So I think Min Jae has maybe expressed to United after their talks, I really like this, you're my favourite offer, I'm swaying towards you. Well, I don't think there's any kind of agreement. I don't think there's any kind of, yes, I'm going to go to you. I think he might have given Manchester United a strong indication that he'd like to join them so that United know it's worth paying the release clause. Manchester United are going to speak to the player before triggering his release clause because they don't want to do a De Jong where they put the money in, they waste their time put the money in, and the player doesn't want to come. I think United, if I talked with Min Jae and got an indication if that they paid the release clause, he'd be willing to come. So United are preparing themselves to pay the release clause in July. But I don't think Min Jae would say yes until the season's over. I mean, that's my honest opinion on the Min Jae story, if I'm being honest with you. I think no one knows the truth. Just relax and wait for the Glazers to sell to whoever wins. And I think you're absolutely right there, Kuta. I think with this takeover, at the end of the day, it's boring, it's frustrating, it's long because who actually does know the truth? we're getting told stuff by good journalists, but these journalists are then contradicting themselves and then going back on what they're saying and then saying something different. These journalists, I think, are being played by Glazer's games. It's so difficult to know what's going on in its takeover because I do think that we are getting completely played by the media. And I think the journalists are being played. I think the journalists that are reporting information don't like that actually a lot of people are getting frustrated with them and their reputation is potentially being ruined because this takeover is dragging on so long. They get told one thing one day, another thing the other day. I think the big problem is no one is 100% sure or no one is 100% certain what is going on with this takeover. There's a lot of fake information put out. There's a lot of information put out as a negotiation tactic. It's a long and grueling process, and I think it's all about when will it be done? When will it be done? Because we want to just get on with our transfer window. We know we want Kane. We know we want Min Jae or Timber. We know that we're looking at some midfielders, and we are going to get into the midfield news in a second. But we can't do anything. We can't do anything. Now, I want to get into the midfield news, who United want to sign in midfield, among some other stories, because I do think this is particularly interesting. And it has come out today here that Erik ten Hag is determined to recruit a world-class striker and a midfielder if Manchester United secure Champions League qualification. So my first thought is if we don't secure Champions League qualification, we'll probably get no one. But I don't think that. But you know what United are like as well. And I think that that is the case. Now, obviously, United and Ten Hag very determined to get midfielder. It said that Harry Kane has been identified as Manchester United's ideal centre forward to reinforce United, but the club is also monitoring Napoli figurehead Victor Osimhen. So we want a big striker, we want a big midfielder. Harry Kane is that preferred striker. Samuel Luck has continued the story by saying the United manager has endorsed second approaches for Jude Bellingham or Frankie de Jong, though Bellingham has been widely tipped to join Real Madrid and Barca's finances would pose an issue for any pursuit of de Jong. So they're saying that United are interested in Jude Bellingham and de Jong, but I think United know that it's not going to happen. It was also said that Ten Hag would like another goalkeeper, even if David De Gea resigns. There are concerns with his passing, which is hindering the way he wants to play. But signing a new contract means that United can still sign a new number one, but it would depend on how much money is raised. So what's interesting about this story from Samuel Lukhurst is he is saying United's priority is striker, then it's midfielder, and then it's Min Jae. And then depending on how much money they have left, which is often dependent on how much money they raise through player sales, they would like to invest that in a goalkeeper because they do want a new goalkeeper. But striker and midfield is similar as a priority of a goalkeeper, which is understandable. Now, it is said that Manchester United will be working with a budget between 100 to 150 million, which will also be supplemented by funds raised by departures. So I think if we get Champions League, it will push to the higher end of that, plus money raised through sales. Now, I think Manchester United can easily raise over £100 million through sales. However, it's not easy for United. I think if you look at the players we can get 25 million for Maguire, 25 million for Scott McTominay, 25 million for Dean Henderson. That is 75 million pounds there. Because it's Manchester United, they probably get about 40 million for those three players. If it's Manchester City, they probably get 100 million for those three players because United are absolutely dog shite in the transfer window. But I think that's 75 million there. I think Donny you can get 15 million for. Martial you can get 10 million for. I think you could still get 40, 50 million for Sancho potentially. I think Tellez, Bailly, Williams bringing 5 million each. I think United can easily, if they're effective in selling the deadwood, make 100 million through sales, which would take that transfer budget to 250 million pounds. We'll also be saving an extra 10, 15, 20 million on wages on top of that, probably like 20 to 25 million wages on top of that. So I think that United, if they're effective in the transfer market, strategic, and use their brains, could have a budget of 250 million. The problem is that this takeover is delaying the transfer window. This takeover is delaying any action that United can take. That any chance of doing this and any chance of having a good effective transfer window like Manchester City, Liverpool, and well-run clubs that have been operating at the top for the last few years is impossible for United because they never do it with the Glazers here and they won't do it if the transfer window is being delayed. So unfortunately, I think that this could be an underwhelming transfer window, if I'm going to be honest. But hopefully the takeover wraps up soon. It was said by Rob Dawson, the uncertainty surrounding the ownership heading into the summer, with sources at Manchester United accepting that they can only hope new owners, if at all, let Mercer and Ten Hag spearhead recruitment. The upheaval at Chelsea is the type of situation they hope to avoid. So they are saying that because of this takeover process, they're hoping that new owners can let them just get on with the transfer window before everything is sorted, so we actually don't fall behind, because Ten Hag is very determined. Ten Hag is very ambitious, and Ten Hag wants a lot of players out. He wants to deadwood out. He wants to sell. He wants to raise the funds because he wants to invest. Ten Hag wants 4 key areas. He wants a big striker, a big midfielder, a good centre-back and a good goalkeeper, and Rabiot on a free. Potentially 5 positions. He kind of wants last summer repeated again, but another 5 positions. Because Ten Hag knows he's got a decent squad, but he does not have the capabilities, the depth to compete with Manchester City. You've seen the drop-off at the end of the season, is what is kind of being reported as well. Guys, please do smash that like button and, of course, subscribe down below. Alice, I dare to say De Jong. I've said it. I know. Not Rice. I think Rice will be heading to Arsenal as well. Raya, 30 million could be a good deal as well. Kim and Jae's agent even mentioned they are watching Champions League qualification as well before making a decision. And that's what I think. I think Kim and Jae likes United, but I think he will wait to see if we get top 4 as well. And everything dealing with United, running United above Ten Hag is crap. I mean, United's just a complete mess. We are just a complete mess. This takeover is a mess. They're not dealing with things particularly well. They're dragging it on. And it was said by Simon Stone, actually, that they think a conclusion could be made in the next week. Now, I can't tell you if that conclusion is going to be Jim Ratcliffe. I can't tell you if that conclusion is going to be Qatar. But what I can tell you is I hope, I beg and I pray that a conclusion is met within the next week, because this process is dragging on for far too long. It is doing my head in as well. Absolutely doing my head in. I just think I'm worried about the transfer window, because a lot needs to be done. Ten Hag is ambitious. He wants a good transfer window, and he deserves a good transfer window, but you just can't trust Manchester. Oh, what have I done? I've just clicked on a random video. You're knobhead, Alice. You're knobhead. You just can't trust United. I don't know what United are going to do, and I think it's the unknown that I don't like. But what I just hope, whether it's Sheikh Jassim or whether it's Sir Jim, I just hope a decision is made soon and we'll get some clarity soon, because I am fed up of this story one day, this story another day, this story one day, this story another day. Dear bloody here, bloody blah, bloody blah, bloody blah. West Ham want Maguire, McTominay, but are not willing to pay 40 million for McTominay. Man United slapping a 40 million price tag on McTominay is a joke. He's a mid-table player just because he's a United Academy player and particularly overrated by managers. If West Ham are offering us 25 million for McTominay, accept it. I'm sorry. Accept it. He's not good enough. Like, I don't get why United want 40 million from McTominay. Accept the 25 million as well. If Qataris gets, I'm sure they'll find a way around FFP, mixing with loans and obligations, installments, sales beyond. Yeah, I think they will find a way around the FFP as well. For Sergio Ratcliffe, I think that he could find a way around FFP, but I don't know how much he's going to spend. The problem is that if the Glazers stay in charge, then we'll be headed for a transfer embargo at some point. We owe 200 million in transfer fees, so please can we find new owners? And this is in June, and I think the Glazers know that they've got to hurry up and move this takeover along now, because they won't want to be having to pay this 200 million transfer embargo fee that they own. And that is why I think that actually we could get some progression and this takeover could speed up, particularly true as well. I want 236 likes. Let's push for 300 likes. Smash the like button if the Glazers are out. Captain says, we all know Sir Jim Ratcliffe will win. I mean, we don't know. I think the Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bid, I can see why the Glazers would favour it. I do think the Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bid could be potentially more appealing to the Glazers because it's more money per share. And those that want to sell the Glazers are the siblings, so they can cash out on that more. And Joe and Avram retain some power, which is reportedly what they want. But we don't know if those reports are true or not. But I do think that I do think that Man United, Ratcliffe, Sheikh Jassim can find a way around FFP. And I do think that Sheikh Jassim could potentially be leading it. But I think that with this being delayed, if Sir Jim Ratcliffe was their preferred bidder 3 weeks ago, why have they waited for this Qatar bid? Why haven't they got an exclusive zone with Sir Jim Ratcliffe? I think it's so hard to know what's going on, but I do think it'll be rounded up soon as well. We could sell all our players to West Ham. Honestly, West Ham want to give us 50 million from McTominay and Maguire. Be my freaking guest. Honestly, be my guest. If the Rat takes control, there'll be no summer signings. The geezers skins. I think there'll be loads of summer signings if the Rat takes control. But then next summer, I think he won't spend a lot. I think it will be like the Glazers. They had one summer where they spent massively to distract us. We had the Super League embargo. Fans were angry. Let's get Varane and Sancho, get the fans less angry. Then the next summer, throw the manager under the bus. That's kind of what United do as well. Anyway, look, people, I'm probably going to wrap up the live stream now. I'm just going to make sure there's no more news coming out. Any last questions, put them in the chat before I wrap out. United obviously in training. Manchester City, Real Madrid tonight, people. Manchester City, Real Madrid tonight, big game. I think Man City are going to win it. I really do, because if it's at the Bernabeu, I fancy Madrid. But at the Etihad, when Manchester City have a big game under a lot of pressure, they always win. The Villa game, 2-0 down, they still get the win. The Arsenal game, they get the win. all those games they had to win to, you know, make sure they win the league title, 10, 20 games in a row, they get the win. I know it's the Champions League, but I just think Manchester City, unfortunately, are unstoppable at the moment. They rested a lot of players in their last game and still absolutely obliterated their opponents. I think Manchester City getting the win in the Champions League tomorrow, and I hate saying that, but hopefully Man City don't get the win. And if you don't want Man City to get the win, smash that like button, subscribe down below, share the video. Anyway, thank you for watching. I will see you next time, and bye.